Maya sat in the back seat of her stepmother's car, staring out the window as tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't bother wiping them away anymore. What was the point? Her stepmother, Catherine, wouldn't care anyway. In fact, Catherine would probably be happy to see her crying. The countryside stretched endlessly on both sides of the road. Fields of corn, patches of wildflowers, and the occasional farmhouse dotted the landscape. It would have been beautiful if Maya wasn't being sent away like some kind of criminal. But that's exactly how Catherine treated her. Like she was a problem that needed to be fixed. It all started 3 days ago. Maya had come home from school exhausted and hungry. She'd skipped lunch because some girls had made loud comments about how much space she took up in the cafeteria. At 17 years old and weighing close to 250 pounds, Maya had heard every cruel comment imaginable. She thought home would be her safe place, but she was wrong. She'd opened the refrigerator looking for a snack and found leftover chocolate cake from Catherine's book club meeting. Just one slice. That's all she'd taken. But Catherine had walked into the kitchen at exactly the wrong moment. Really, Maya? Really? Catherine's voice had been ice cold. Do you have no self-control whatsoever? Maya had frozen with the fork halfway to her mouth. Her father had been in the living room watching television, close enough to hear everything but saying nothing. He never said anything when Catherine went after her. I was just hungry, Maya had whispered. You're always hungry. That's the problem. Catherine had crossed her arms, looking at Maya with pure disgust. Look at yourself. You're only 17 and you can barely fit through doorways. This is getting out of hand. Maya had put the plate down, her appetite completely gone. But Catherine wasn't finished. I've tried everything with you. Diet plans, exercise programs, portion control. Nothing works because you have no discipline. Well, I'm done trying to fix you here. You need real work, hard work. The kind that will teach you what discipline actually means. That's when Catherine had told her about the plan. She'd contacted some business associate who knew a farmer willing to take on help for the summer. Maya would spend the next 3 months working on a farm upstate. Manual labor, early mornings. No excuses. Maybe sweating in the sun all day will teach you something about self-control, Catherine had said with a satisfied smile. Maya had looked desperately at her father, begging him with her eyes to intervene, to protect her, to tell Catherine this was insane. But he'd just sighed and said, Maybe it'll be good for you, honey. Fresh air, exercise, healthy living. He couldn't even look her in the eye when he said it. Now here she was, 3 days later, being driven 4 hours away from home to work for some stranger. Catherine hadn't even let her bring much. One small suitcase with clothes, some toiletries, and her phone charger. That was it. No laptop, no books, nothing that might make the summer bearable. We're almost there, Catherine announced, her voice actually cheerful. She was probably thrilled to have Maya out of the house for 3 months. No more embarrassment about her stepdaughter's size. No more feeling like she had to explain or apologize for Maya's existence. The car turned down a long dirt road. Trees lined both sides, creating a tunnel of green leaves that filtered the sunlight. After about half a mile, they emerged into a clearing, and Maya got her first look at the farm. She'd expected something run down and depressing, matching her mood. Instead, the property was surprisingly nice. The farmhouse was a 2-story building painted a soft cream color with dark green shutters. The porch wrapped around the front and side, complete with rocking chairs and hanging flower baskets. Behind the house, she could see a large red barn, several smaller outbuildings, and what looked like a greenhouse. Fields stretched out in every direction, and she could hear chickens clucking somewhere nearby. Catherine parked the car in front of the house. Before they could even get out, the front door opened and a man stepped onto the porch. He looked to be in his early 50s with gray streaked through his dark hair. He wore jeans, work boots, and a plain blue t-shirt. His hands looked rough and weathered, the hands of someone who'd spent years working outdoors. But his face was kind, with smile lines around his eyes. You must be Catherine, he said, walking down the porch steps. His voice was deep and calm. I'm Daniel Whitmore. Catherine shook his hand, suddenly all business and politeness. It made Maya sick how fake she could be. Thank you so much for agreeing to this, Mr. Whitmore. I really think this experience will be valuable for Maya. She said Maya's name like it tasted bad in her mouth. Daniel looked past Catherine to where Maya was slowly getting out of the car. She kept her eyes down, humiliation burning in her chest. Here it comes, she thought. The look, the judgment, the barely concealed disgust that everyone had when they first saw her. Hello, Maya. Daniel said simply. Welcome. She forced herself to look up at him, bracing for whatever cruel comment or disappointed expression awaited her. But Daniel's face showed neither. He just looked at her like she was a normal person. Not a project. Not a problem. Just a person. It confused her so much she didn't know what to say. Catherine was already pulling Maya's small suitcase from the trunk. She doesn't have much. I figured she wouldn't need a lot for farm work. She thrust the suitcase at Maya, who grabbed it quickly before it fell. I've laid out her responsibilities in an email, Catherine continued, talking to Daniel like Maya wasn't even there. She needs structure and discipline. Don't let her slack off or make excuses. That's been the problem at home. Too soft, too many second chances. Maya felt her face burning. Could Catherine be any more embarrassing? Daniel nodded slowly, but something flickered across his face that Maya couldn't quite read. I received your email. Maya and I will figure out a routine that works. Good. Catherine checked her watch. I need to get back before traffic gets bad. Maya, behave yourself. Don't embarrass me any more than you already have. And just like that, Catherine got back in her car. No hug, no words of encouragement, not even a fake I'll miss you. She just started the engine and drove away, dust kicking up behind her tires. Maya stood there holding her pathetic little suitcase, watching the car disappear down the long driveway. A lump formed in her throat. She was alone now, in the middle of nowhere with a complete stranger sentenced to 3 months of punishment for the crime of being overweight and hungry. Come on, Daniel said gently. Let me show you your room. Maya followed him up the porch steps and into the house. The inside was even nicer than the outside. Hardwood floors, comfortable furniture, and lots of natural light streaming through big windows. It smelled like coffee and something baking. The house felt lived in and cozy. Nothing like the cold perfection of Catherine's house where everything had to match and nothing could be out of place. Daniel led her up a staircase to the second floor and opened a door to a bedroom. It wasn't huge, but it was nice. A full-sized bed with a blue quilt, a wooden dresser, a desk with a chair, and a window that looked out over the fields. There was even a small bookshelf with actual books on it. Bathroom is right across the hall, Daniel said. You'll have it to yourself. I use the one downstairs. Maya just nodded, not trusting herself to speak. If she tried to talk right now, she might start crying again, and she didn't want to break down in front of this stranger. Daniel seemed to sense this. Why don't you get settled in? Take your time. When you're ready, come downstairs and we'll talk about how things work around here. No rush. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Maya sat down on the bed and finally let herself cry. Not the silent tears from the car, but real sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for being sent away, for her father's weakness, for Catherine's cruelty, for every mean comment and disgusted look she'd endured, for being trapped here all summer with nowhere to go and no one who cared. She cried until she had no tears left. Then she lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how she was going to survive the next 3 months. Maya woke up to sunlight streaming through the window. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then reality came crashing back. The farm. Catherine's punishment. 3 months of hard labor ahead. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand. 6:30 in the morning. Back home she'd still be asleep for another hour. She listened carefully, wondering if Daniel was already up and angry that she wasn't working yet. Catherine's email had probably said she needed to start at dawn or something equally horrible. But the house was quiet. Maya got dressed slowly, pulling on old jeans and a t-shirt. She looked at herself in the small mirror above the dresser and felt that familiar wave of shame. Her shirt was tight across her stomach. Her face looked puffy from crying last night. She looked exactly like what Catherine always said she was. A mess, a disappointment. She forced herself to go downstairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. The smell of coffee hit her first, then bacon and fresh bread. Her stomach growled despite her anxiety. Daniel was in the kitchen, standing at the stove. He looked up when she walked in and smiled. Good morning. I hope you slept okay. Yeah, Maya mumbled. Should I have been up earlier? I can start working now. Daniel looked confused. Start working. Maya, it's 6:30. Have you had breakfast? No, but I thought... Sit down, he said, not unkindly. He pulled out a chair at the kitchen table. Nobody works on an empty stomach. Not on this farm. Maya sat, feeling off balance. This wasn't what she'd expected. Catherine had made it sound like she'd be worked like a slave from sunrise to sunset. Daniel placed a plate in front of her. Scrambled eggs, 2 slices of bacon, and a piece of toast with butter. It looked delicious, but Maya hesitated. Catherine's voice echoed in her head. "Do you really need that much food?" "Something wrong?" Daniel asked, sitting down across from her with his own plate. "It's just, this seems like a lot." Daniel took a bite of his toast and shrugged. "It's breakfast. You'll be moving around today. Your body needs fuel." He said it so matter-of-factly. No judgment. No comments about portions or calories or how much space she was taking up. Maya picked up her fork and took a small bite of eggs. They were perfect. Fluffy and seasoned just right. "So here's how things work around here," Daniel said between bites. "I'll show you the basics today. Nothing too intense. Just getting you familiar with where everything is and what needs to be done daily." "Okay," Maya said quietly. "We've got chickens that need feeding and egg collecting every morning. There's a vegetable garden that needs watering and weeding. The barn needs mucking out a few times a week. I've got a few goats that are pretty easy to take care of. Does any of that sound manageable?" Maya nodded. It actually sounded way easier than what she'd imagined. She'd pictured herself bent over in fields under the burning sun, pulling up crops until her back gave out. "Good. We'll take it slow. I'm not here to torture you, Maya." Something about the way he said it made her look up at him. He was watching her with those kind eyes, and she had the strangest feeling that he could see right through all her walls and armor. After breakfast, Daniel took her outside. The morning air was cool and fresh, so different from the city where everything always smelled like exhaust and hot pavement. Birds were singing in the trees and the sky was clear and blue. The chicken coop was behind the barn. About 20 chickens pecked around in their enclosed run, clucking softly. Daniel showed her how to scatter their feed and check the nesting boxes for eggs. "Don't be scared of them," he said with a slight smile. "They're more afraid of you than you are of them." Maya carefully reached into a nesting box and pulled out a warm brown egg. Something about it felt good. Real. Like she was doing something that actually mattered, even if it was small. They collected 14 eggs total, placing them gently in a wire basket. Next, Daniel led her to the vegetable garden. It was huge, with neat rows of tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, lettuce, and plants Maya couldn't even identify. A hose lay coiled at one end. "Early morning and evening are the best times to water," Daniel explained. "Middle of the day, the sun just evaporates everything before the plants can drink it up. I'll handle evenings for this week while you're getting used to everything. You just worry about mornings." He showed her how to water at the base of the plants, not on the leaves. How to check the soil to see if it actually needed watering, or if it was still moist from the day before. He pointed out weeds and showed her how to pull them without disturbing the vegetables. It was surprisingly peaceful. The sun was getting warmer but wasn't unbearable yet. The smell of earth and growing things filled the air. Maya found herself actually focused on what she was doing instead of the constant negative loop that usually played in her head. By the time they finished with the garden, it was almost 9 o'clock. "Let's take a break," Daniel said. "It's going to get hot soon." They sat on the porch with glasses of cold water. Maya's legs ached a little from all the walking and bending, but it wasn't terrible. It actually felt kind of good, like her body had done something useful. "You did really well this morning," Daniel said. Maya shrugged. It wasn't that hard. Still, first day in a new place, doing new things. That takes courage. No one had ever used the word courage to describe anything Maya did. She didn't know what to say, so she just sipped her water. "I'm going to make lunch in a bit," Daniel continued. "After that, I thought you might want to see the horses. I've got 2 of them in the back pasture. We won't do any work with them today. Just let you meet them." "You have horses?" Maya asked, unable to hide her surprise. 2. A mare named Rosie and a gelding named Cooper. They're good animals. Maya had never been close to a horse in her life. The idea was both exciting and terrifying. Lunch was grilled chicken sandwiches with fresh lettuce from the garden and homemade lemonade. Again, Daniel just put the food in front of her without comment. No portion control. No guilt trips. No watching to see how much she ate. It was the strangest feeling, eating without someone judging her every bite. After lunch, Daniel took her out to the back pasture. 2 horses grazed in the shade of a large oak tree. One was reddish-brown, the other was dark gray. When they saw Daniel, both horses lifted their heads and walked over to the fence. "This is Rosie," Daniel said, stroking the reddish horse's nose. "And this big guy is Cooper." Cooper, the gray horse, turned his attention to Maya. His dark eyes were huge and gentle. He lowered his head slightly, sniffing in her direction. "Can I touch him?" Maya asked nervously. "Sure. Just let him smell your hand first, then you can pet his nose." Maya held out her hand, trembling slightly. Cooper's breath was warm and soft against her palm. Then she carefully touched his nose. It was velvety and soft, completely different from what she'd expected. Something inside Maya's chest cracked open just a little bit. This beautiful, powerful animal was letting her touch him. Not pulling away, not acting disgusted, just standing there calmly accepting her presence. "He likes you," Daniel said quietly. They stood there for several minutes, Maya petting Cooper while Rosie tried to nudge her way in for attention too. The sun was warm on Maya's back, and for the first time since Catherine had announced this punishment, Maya felt something other than misery. She felt almost peaceful. That afternoon, Daniel told her she was done for the day. "You worked this morning, and that's plenty for your first day. Tomorrow we'll do the same routine and you'll get stronger and faster at it. But there's no point in overdoing it." Maya went back to her room exhausted, but in a different way than usual. Not the exhaustion of hating herself and her life, just the tiredness that came from using her body. She looked out the window at the fields and the barn and the trees in the distance. This place was nothing like home. Daniel was nothing like Catherine. He hadn't said one cruel word all day. Hadn't made one comment about her weight or her eating or her appearance. He just treated her like a person. Maya didn't trust it yet. Catherine had taught her that kindness always came with conditions. That people were only nice when they wanted something or when they were setting you up for a bigger disappointment later. But as she lay down on the bed, her muscles aching in that good way, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this summer wouldn't be the nightmare she'd expected. Maybe it would be something else entirely. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya fell into a routine. Wake up, have breakfast with Daniel, feed the chickens and collect eggs, water the garden, do whatever other small task Daniel had for that day. Some days they weeded. Some days they cleaned out the barn. Some days they picked vegetables that were ready to harvest. Daniel never pushed her too hard. He seemed to have an instinct for when she was getting tired or overwhelmed. And he never, ever commented on her body or her eating. The meals he cooked were simple but delicious. Fresh vegetables, grilled meat, homemade bread. Everything tasted better than anything Catherine had ever made with her expensive ingredients and complicated recipes. And Daniel always made sure Maya ate enough. "Growing girls need nutrition," he'd say casually, putting another piece of chicken on her plate. Maya started to notice things about the farm that seemed unusual. The equipment in the barn was all top of the line and looked almost new. There were solar panels on the roof of the greenhouse that she'd completely missed at first. The greenhouse itself was huge and full of technology she didn't recognize. Automated watering systems, climate controls, grow lights. For a simple farmer, Daniel seemed to have a lot of expensive stuff, but she didn't ask about it. She was too afraid of breaking whatever spell had made this place feel safe. Too worried that asking questions would remind Daniel that she was supposed to be here as punishment, not as a person he actually seemed to care about. On the 15th day, everything changed. Maya was in the garden pulling weeds when she heard a car coming up the driveway. Not Catherine's car. The engine sounded different. More expensive. She stood up, wiping dirt from her hands, and walked around the side of the house. A sleek black Mercedes was parked in front. A woman in a business suit was standing next to it talking to Daniel. She held a leather briefcase and looked completely out of place on a farm. "Mr. Whitmore, I have the quarterly reports you requested," the woman was saying. "And the investment team needs your signature on the new acquisition papers." Maya froze. "Mr. Whitmore? Quarterly reports? Investment team?" Daniel noticed her standing there. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Then he turned back to the woman. "Thank you, Patricia. Just leave everything in my office. I'll review it tonight." The woman nodded, handed him the briefcase, and got back in her Mercedes. Daniel and Maya stood there in silence as the car drove away. "I think," Daniel said slowly, "we need to have a talk." Maya followed Daniel into the house, her mind racing. Quarterly reports. Investment team. That woman had called him Mr. Whitmore like he was some kind of businessman, not a farmer. Nothing made sense. Daniel led her to a room she'd never been in before. It was off the main hallway, the door usually closed. He opened it now and Maya's eyes went wide. It was an office. But not just any office. One wall was covered with framed certificates and awards. Another had photographs of Daniel shaking hands with people in suits, standing at podiums, cutting ribbons at building openings. A massive desk sat in the center with 2 computer monitors and stacks of professional-looking documents. Maya looked at a plaque on the wall. Daniel Whitmore, founder and CEO, Whitmore Agricultural Technologies. Her brain struggled to process the words. "Sit down," Daniel said gently, gesturing to a comfortable chair across from his desk. Maya sat, feeling like she'd fallen down a rabbit hole into some alternate universe. Daniel settled into his own chair and looked at her for a long moment. "I suppose I owe you an explanation. You're not just a farmer," Maya said. It came out almost like an accusation. "I am a farmer. This land has been in my family for 3 generations. I grew up here, worked this soil my whole childhood." He paused. "But you're right. I'm also other things." He leaned back in his chair and Maya noticed how tired he suddenly looked. 20 years ago, I started a company. I'd been working on agricultural technology, better equipment for sustainable farming. I wanted to help small farmers compete with big corporations. The company grew faster than I ever imagined. We developed automated systems, water conservation technology, soil analysis equipment. We held dozens of patents. Maya just stared at him. 5 years ago, I sold the company for $230 million. The number hit Maya like a physical blow. $230 million. That was more money than she could even comprehend. I kept this farm because it's home. It's real. Everything else felt like it was built on paper and promises, but this land is solid. I consult sometimes for agricultural companies. That's what Patricia was bringing me. But mostly, I just live here and work the land. Why didn't you tell me? Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. Because when your stepmother contacted me, she told me about a lazy, undisciplined girl who needed to learn hard work and consequences. She made you sound like some kind of spoiled brat who'd never done a real day's work in her life. Maya felt her face burn with shame. But then you got here, and I saw something completely different. I saw a scared, hurt kid who'd been beaten down by someone who should have been protecting her. I saw my daughter. Your daughter? Maya's head snapped up. Daniel stood and walked to the wall of photographs. He touched one frame gently and lifted it down. He handed it to Maya. The photo showed Daniel, younger and smiling, with his arm around a teenage girl. She had dark hair and a bright smile, but her eyes looked sad. She was thin, too thin. Maya recognized that look. The look of someone who was disappearing. Her name was Sophie. She was 16 in that picture. She died 3 years ago. Maya's throat tightened. What happened? Daniel sat back down heavily. She had an eating disorder. Anorexia. It started when she was 14. Her mother and I were divorced, and Sophie lived with her mom most of the time. Her mother was very concerned with appearances. How things looked, what people thought. He was quiet for a moment, staring at his hands. Sophie's mother would make comments about what she ate, how she looked, whether her clothes fit right. It was never outright cruel, just constant little digs. I didn't realize how bad it was until Sophie ended up in the hospital. By then, the damage was done. We got her help, therapy, treatment programs. She'd do better for a while, then slide back. The disease had its hooks in her. Maya felt tears building behind her eyes. 2 weeks after her 17th birthday, her heart gave out. The doctor said her body just couldn't take the strain anymore. And I realized I'd failed her. I'd known something was wrong, but I hadn't protected her. I'd let her mother's toxic voice become the loudest voice in Sophie's head. Daniel looked directly at Maya now. When Catherine contacted me through a business associate, describing you as someone who needed discipline and hard work, I got suspicious. I did some research. I found your social media. I saw the way Catherine posted about you, the way she talked about you in comments, always with this edge of disappointment and shame. Maya felt exposed, like Daniel had looked into all her dark corners. I saw the same pattern. A woman using criticism and shame as weapons against a young girl. Different problem, same poison. So I agreed to take you for the summer, but not for the reasons Catherine thought. Then why? Maya asked. Because I couldn't save Sophie. But maybe I could help you. The tears Maya had been holding back spilled over. She wiped at them angrily, but they kept coming. Catherine told me I was being punished, that I deserved this because I was fat and lazy and disgusting. You're none of those things, Daniel said firmly. You're a 17-year-old kid who's been emotionally abused. There's a difference between someone needing to learn discipline and someone needing to heal from constant cruelty. Maya cried harder. She'd spent so long believing Catherine's words, letting them define her reality. Hearing someone say they were wrong felt like trying to believe in gravity working backwards. Daniel pulled a tissue box from his desk drawer and slid it across to her. He didn't try to hug her or make her stop crying. He just let her feel what she needed to feel. When Maya finally got control of herself, she looked up at him with red eyes. Why are you telling me all this now? Because you needed to know the truth, and because I think you're ready to hear it. Daniel stood and walked to the window. Sophie believed every cruel word her mother said. She thought she was too big, too much, taking up too much space. She tried to make herself smaller and smaller until she disappeared completely. He turned back to Maya. I don't want that for you. I want you to understand that the problem isn't you. It's never been you. The problem is people who think they have the right to tear others down. But I am overweight, Maya said quietly. That's just a fact. It's a fact about your body, not a fact about your worth as a person. Those are two completely different things. Daniel sat back down. Over the last 2 weeks, you've worked hard. You've learned new skills. You've taken care of animals and plants. You've shown up every day even though you were scared and angry. That's who you are, not a number on a scale. Maya twisted the tissue in her hands. Catherine would say you're just making excuses for me. Catherine is wrong. And honestly, Maya, I don't think this summer should be about what Catherine wants at all. I think it should be about what you need. What do I need? The question came out small and lost. Daniel smiled sadly. I think you need to remember that you're more than what anyone has told you. You need time to heal. You need to learn to trust yourself again. And maybe you need to learn that not all adults are going to hurt you. They sat in silence for a while. Maya looked at the photo of Sophie still in her hands. That sad smile hiding so much pain. Can I ask you something? Maya said finally. Anything. If you have all that money, why do you live like this? I mean, this house is nice, but it's not like mansion nice. You cook your own meals. You clean your own barn. You could hire people to do all that. Daniel laughed, and it was a real laugh, full of warmth. I tried that. Right after I sold the company. Big house in the city, hired help, fancy restaurants every night. You know what I learned? Money doesn't make you happy. It just makes you comfortable while you're unhappy. So you came back here. I came back here. To the place where things made sense. Where work has purpose and results you can see and touch. Where a tomato is just a tomato. Not some symbol of status or success. Maya thought about that. About how the last 2 weeks had been hard but also peaceful in a way she'd never experienced. What happens now? She asked. Now we keep going. You keep learning about the farm, but I also want to bring in some people who can help you in other ways. What kind of people? I have a friend who's a nutritionist. Not the diet culture kind who'll shame you and starve you. The real kind who understands that bodies need fuel and that health looks different for different people. I thought she could teach you about nourishing yourself instead of punishing yourself. Maya nodded slowly. And I'd like to have a therapist come by once a week. Someone you can talk to about everything that's happened. About Catherine. About how you're feeling. All of it. Catherine would never pay for therapy. Catherine's not paying for anything. I am. Daniel's voice was firm. And before you argue, understand something. I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. Sophie never got the help she truly needed until it was too late. If I can use what I have to help you, then that money is finally doing something that matters. Maya felt overwhelmed. This stranger was offering her more care and support than her own family ever had. Why do you even care about me? She whispered. Daniel's eyes were kind but sad. Because someone should have cared about Sophie the way I'm going to care about you. Because every kid deserves at least one adult who's in their corner. And because, Maya, I think you're worth caring about. Something broke open inside Maya's chest. Not in a bad way. More like ice melting after a long winter. She wasn't fixed. She wasn't healed. But for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt like maybe, possibly, she could be okay. Thank you, she said, and meant it with everything she had. Don't thank me yet, Daniel said with a slight smile. You've still got to muck out the barn twice a week. The next morning, Maya woke up feeling different. Lighter somehow, even though her body hadn't changed. It was like Daniel's words from yesterday had lifted something heavy off her chest that she'd been carrying for so long she'd forgotten it was there. At breakfast, Daniel was already at the stove making pancakes. Real pancakes with blueberries, not the diet version Catherine used to make with artificial sweetener and sadness. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "Yeah, actually." Maya sat down at the table. "I kept thinking about everything you said." Daniel flipped a pancake expertly. And I think I want to try. The nutritionist, the therapist, all of it." He smiled and slid 3 golden pancakes onto her plate. "I'm proud of you. That takes courage." There was that word again. Courage. Maya was starting to believe maybe he was right. The nutritionist, a woman named Linda, came by that afternoon. Maya had been nervous all morning, expecting someone who would lecture her about calories and shame her for every food choice she'd ever made. But Linda was nothing like that. She was probably in her 40s with warm brown eyes and a comfortable way of moving. She sat with Maya at the kitchen table with a notebook, but she didn't pull out a scale or measuring tape. "So Maya, tell me about your relationship with food," Linda said. It was such a simple question, but it made Maya's throat tight. "I don't know. It's complicated. Most relationships with food are," Linda said easily, "especially when other people have opinions about what and how much we should eat." Maya found herself talking about how Catherine monitored every bite, about skipping lunch at school because eating in public felt like giving people ammunition, about sneaking food late at night because it was the only time she didn't feel watched, about how eating felt like both comfort and punishment at the same time. Linda listened without judgment, just nodding and taking occasional notes. "Here's what I want you to understand," Linda said when Maya finished. "Food isn't the enemy. Food is fuel and nourishment and sometimes pleasure. What happened to you is that food got tangled up with control and shame and worthiness. We're going to untangle that." Over the next hour, Linda explained things no one had ever told Maya before, about how diets usually fail because they're about restriction instead of nourishment, about how bodies need different amounts of food at different times, about listening to hunger and fullness cues instead of rules and regulations. "Your body is smarter than you think," Linda said. "It knows what it needs. But years of people telling you not to trust it has made you doubt those signals. We're going to help you reconnect with yourself." She left Maya with some simple homework. No diets, no calorie counting, just paying attention to how foods made her feel, which meals left her energized and which ones made her sluggish. When she was actually hungry versus when she was eating for other reasons. "This isn't about weight loss," Linda said firmly before she left. "This is about health and happiness. If your body changes, that's a side effect, not the goal. Understand?" Maya nodded, and for the first time in her life, she actually believed that might be possible. The therapist, Dr. Chen, started coming twice a week. She was younger than Maya expected, maybe early 30s, with an easy smile and a direct way of talking that Maya appreciated. Their first session was awkward. Maya didn't know what to say or where to start. But Dr. Chen made it easier. "Tell me about your family," she said, so Maya did. About her mom dying when she was 8. About her dad marrying Catherine 2 years later. About how Catherine had seemed nice at first, but slowly the comments started. Little digs about Maya's appearance, her habits, her choices. How her dad never stood up for her, always taking the path of least resistance. "It sounds lonely," Dr. Chen said quietly. That simple observation made Maya cry. Because it was lonely. She'd been lonely for years in a house with 2 other people. "Your stepmother's behavior is emotional abuse," Dr. Chen said plainly. "I want you to understand that. The constant criticism, the public humiliation, the punishment disguised as concern for your health. That's abuse." Hearing someone say it out loud made it real in a way Maya hadn't let herself acknowledge. "But she's not wrong about everything," Maya argued. "I am overweight. Being overweight isn't a moral failing. It's not something you deserve to be punished for. And honestly, Maya, a lot of people eat more and move less when they're living in a stressful environment. Your body was trying to cope with emotional trauma." They talked about coping mechanisms, about how Maya had used food as comfort because she had nothing else. About how that wasn't weakness, it was survival. "We're going to work on building other tools," Dr. Chen said, "better ways to handle stress and sadness. But I need you to stop seeing yourself as broken. You're not broken. You're hurt. There's a difference." Meanwhile, the farm work continued. But now Maya understood it differently. It wasn't punishment. It was purpose. Daniel taught her more complex tasks. How to repair a fence, how to recognize when the goats weren't feeling well, how to drive the small tractor that made her nervous at first but became fun once she got the hang of it. Her body was changing, but not in the dramatic way Catherine had always insisted it needed to. She was building muscle. Her stamina was improving. She could carry feed bags that would have exhausted her a month ago. But more than that, she was learning to appreciate what her body could do instead of just hating how it looked. One afternoon, Daniel found her in the barn brushing Cooper, the gray horse. She'd been doing it every day, talking to him about her feelings because horses didn't judge or give unwanted advice. "How would you feel about learning to ride?" Daniel asked. Maya's eyes went wide. "Seriously?" "Seriously." "Cooper's gentle, and I think you're ready." The first few lessons were terrifying. Getting up on Cooper felt impossible. Maya was convinced she was too heavy, that she'd hurt him, that she'd look ridiculous. But Daniel was patient, showing her how to mount properly, how to sit, how to hold the reins. Cooper was patient too, standing steady while Maya figured things out, and then, the first time Cooper walked with her on his back, something magical happened. Maya felt powerful, not despite her size, but just powerful, period. She was controlling this huge, strong animal, and he was listening to her, moving when she asked, stopping when she needed. She started crying right there on horseback, and Daniel pretended not to notice. By the middle of July, Maya's days had a rhythm that felt good. Morning chores, breakfast, time with the animals, lunch, sometimes more work or sometimes reading in the shade. Evening chores, dinner, and quiet time before bed. Linda came once a week, Dr. Chen came twice a week. And slowly, gradually, Maya started to feel like a person again instead of a problem. She was also learning things she'd never expected. Daniel started teaching her about his work, the agricultural technology that had made him wealthy. He showed her the automated systems in the greenhouse, explained how soil sensors worked, taught her about sustainable farming practices. "You're smart, Maya," he said one day while they were checking the moisture levels in the vegetable garden. "Have you thought about college? What you might want to study?" The question caught her off guard. Catherine had always made college sound like a distant impossibility, something Maya would need to earn through weight loss and attitude adjustment. "I like science," Maya admitted. "Biology, environmental stuff, but I don't know if I'm college material." "Why wouldn't you be?" "Catherine always said I wasn't applying myself. That I was too distracted and undisciplined." Daniel made a frustrated sound. "Catherine says a lot of things that are wrong. Tell me, what are your grades actually like?" "Mostly B's, a few A's in science classes. But nothing. Those are good grades, especially when you're dealing with a toxic home environment. Maya, you could absolutely go to college. And if you're interested in environmental science, I know people, professors, researchers. I could introduce you." The idea felt too big, too impossible, but also thrilling in a way Maya hadn't felt in years. That night, Maya video called her dad for the first time in weeks. She'd been texting him occasionally, short messages that kept him from worrying but didn't say much of substance. But tonight she wanted to actually talk. He answered on the third ring, looking tired. "Maya, how are you, sweetie?" "I'm good, Dad. Actually good." They talked for a while about the farm, the animals, the work she was doing. Her dad seemed relieved that she wasn't miserable. Then Maya took a breath and said what she'd been practicing with Dr. Chen. "Dad, I need to talk to you about Catherine." Her father's expression shifted, becoming guarded. "Maya, not this again." "Yes, this again. Dad, the way she treats me isn't okay. The things she says, the way she looks at me, sending me here as punishment. It's not normal. It's not healthy. She's just trying to help you be your best self." "No, Dad, she's not. She's cruel. And you let her be cruel because it's easier than standing up to her." Silence on the other end. "I'm not coming home if things don't change," Maya said, her voice shaking but firm. "Daniel said I can stay here and finish high school nearby if I need to. I'll do that before I go back to living with someone who treats me like I'm worthless." "Maya, you're being dramatic." "I'm being honest. For the first time in years, I'm in a place where people treat me with respect, where I'm not constantly told I'm wrong or too much or not enough, and I'm not giving that up." Her father looked shocked. Maya had never stood up to him before. Never drawn a line. "I love you, Dad, but I need you to actually be my father. That means protecting me, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." She ended the call before he could respond, her heart pounding. Daniel had been in the kitchen and clearly heard at least her side of the conversation. He came into the living room and sat down next to her on the couch. "That was brave," he said simply. "I'm terrified," Maya admitted. "Being brave usually involves being terrified. You did good." Maya leaned her head on his shoulder and Daniel put his arm around her. It reminded her of the photo of him with Sophie, and she understood now why he'd brought her here. Not to replace his daughter, but to do for Maya what he wished someone had done for Sophie. To be the one adult who said, "You matter. You're worth fighting for, and I'm not going anywhere." 3 days after Maya's phone call with her father, Catherine's car came roaring up the driveway. Maya was in the garden picking tomatoes when she heard it. Her whole body tensed. She knew that engine sound. She'd know it anywhere. Daniel was in the barn. Maya thought about running to get him, but something stopped her. She'd spent years running from Catherine. Maybe it was time to stand still. Catherine got out of the car, and even from a distance, Maya could see she was furious. Her stepmother's face was tight, her movements sharp and aggressive as she slammed the car door. "Maya," Catherine's voice cut across the yard. "Get over here now." Maya set down the basket of tomatoes carefully. Her hands were shaking, but she walked toward Catherine with her head up. She wasn't the same girl who'd arrived here 2 months ago. "What do you think you're doing, putting ideas in your father's head?" Catherine demanded. "Accusing me of abuse? Threatening to stay here instead of coming home? After everything I've done for you?" "Everything you've done to me, you mean?" Maya said quietly. Catherine's eyes went wide. Maya had never talked back before. "Excuse me? You heard me? You've spent years tearing me down, making me feel worthless, and I'm done pretending that's normal. I was trying to help you. You were killing yourself with food and someone had to what? Make me hate myself? Mission accomplished." Maya felt stronger with every word. "You didn't send me here to help me. You sent me here to punish me for embarrassing you. You ungrateful little— Is there a problem here?" Daniel's voice cut through the tension. He'd come out of the barn and now stood beside Maya, not in front of her like he was fighting her battles. Beside her like he had her back. Catherine turned her anger on him. "This is none of your business. She's my daughter and I'm taking her home." "Stepdaughter," Daniel corrected calmly. "And actually, it is my business. Maya's been living under my roof for 2 months. I've seen what your treatment has done to her." "My treatment? I've been trying to help her lose weight and develop some self-control. You've been emotionally abusing her." Daniel's voice was steel. "The constant criticism, the public humiliation, sending her away as punishment. I've documented all of it, Catherine, including the emails you sent me describing Maya as lazy, undisciplined, and worthless." Catherine's face went pale. "Those were private communications, and they show a clear pattern of emotional abuse. I've already spoken with my lawyers." "Your lawyers?" Catherine laughed, but it sounded nervous. "You're a farmer. What are you going to do, sue me with your tractor?" Daniel pulled out his phone and showed her something on the screen. Maya couldn't see what it was, but she watched Catherine's expression change from mockery to shock. You're Daniel Whitmore." "The Daniel Whitmore?" "From Whitmore Agricultural Technologies." "That's right, which means I have the resources to make sure Maya is protected. So here's how this is going to work." Daniel's voice was calm but absolutely firm. "You and Maya's father are going to attend family therapy. All of you together. A professional is going to help you understand the damage you've caused and how to fix it. I'm not going to therapy because some rich farmer has opinions about my parenting. Then I'll pursue legal action. I have enough documentation to build a case for emotional abuse. And I promise you, Catherine, you don't want that fight. I have better lawyers than you can imagine, and I'm willing to use every resource I have to protect Maya." Catherine looked between Daniel and Maya, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. "Maya, stop this nonsense. Get in the car. We're going home." Maya took a deep breath. "No. What did you say?" "I said no. I'm not going anywhere with you." "Not unless things change, or your father will hear about this." "Dad already knows. I told him everything on the phone. And you know what? He didn't defend you. He just went quiet because deep down he knows I'm right." Catherine's mouth opened and closed. She looked like she wanted to say a dozen cruel things, but Daniel's presence kept her in check. "This is ridiculous," Catherine finally sputtered. "You can't just keep her here. I can if she wants to stay. Maya's 17. Old enough to have a say in where she lives." Daniel crossed his arms. "Here's my offer. You and her father come to family therapy. You work on treating Maya with basic respect and dignity. If you can do that, maybe she'll choose to come home. If you can't, she has a place here for as long as she needs it. And if I refuse, then I make phone calls to Child Protective Services, to my lawyers, to some journalist friends who would find this story very interesting. Your choice. Catherine's face was red now, but Maya could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. She was realizing she'd underestimated both Maya and Daniel, that her usual tactics weren't going to work. Fine, Catherine said through gritted teeth. We'll try your precious therapy. But this is insane. What's insane is treating a child like a burden, Daniel said. Now I think it's time for you to leave. Catherine got back in her car without another word to Maya. She peeled out of the driveway so fast that gravel sprayed everywhere. Maya stood there shaking. Her legs felt weak. Daniel gently guided her to the porch steps and they both sat down. You did so good, he said. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. Standing up to people who've hurt you is terrifying. He handed her a bottle of water he'd grabbed from inside. But you did it. You stood your ground. Maya drank the water and tried to calm her racing heart. Do you really think therapy will help? With Catherine and my dad? Honestly, I don't know. Some people are willing to change and some people aren't. But at least now there's a boundary. She knows she can't treat you any way she wants without consequences. What if my dad chooses her over me? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then you'll know the truth. And as painful as that is, knowing is better than hoping for something that won't happen. But Maya, no matter what your father decides, you have a place here. I meant that. Over the next few weeks, Maya's father called several times. The conversations were awkward and painful. He was defensive at first, making excuses for Catherine, saying Maya was being too sensitive. But as Dr. Chen helped Maya articulate exactly what had been happening, her father started to actually listen. I didn't realize, he said during one call. I thought Catherine was just being practical, concerned about your health. Dad, she sent me away as punishment. She told Daniel I was worthless. That's not concern. That's cruelty. Her father was quiet for a long time. I'm sorry, Maya. I should have protected you better. I was just so tired of the conflict. So you sacrificed me to keep the peace. Yes, he admitted, and that was wrong. It wasn't a complete healing, but it was a start. Her father agreed to therapy. Catherine went too, though according to Maya's dad, she spent the first 2 sessions insisting she'd done nothing wrong. Meanwhile, summer was ending. Maya would need to make a decision about school soon, go back to her old high school or stay here and enroll in the local one. Daniel helped her think through both options. Whatever you choose, I support you. You can stay here and I'll make sure you have everything you need, or you can go home if you feel safe enough. There's no wrong answer. Maya thought about it for days. She missed her old bedroom, her few friends at school, but the idea of living with Catherine again, even with therapy, made her stomach hurt. In the end, she chose to stay, at least for senior year, to see if her father and Catherine could actually change. And if they did, maybe she'd go home for college breaks. But she needed more time in a place where she felt safe. Daniel helped her enroll in the local high school. It was smaller than her old one, but that felt good, less overwhelming. Linda recommended a youth support group in town for teens dealing with family stuff. Dr. Chen continued their twice-weekly sessions. Maya also started looking at colleges. Daniel introduced her to a professor friend at the state university who worked in environmental science. They talked for 2 hours about sustainable agriculture, climate change, and career possibilities. The professor encouraged Maya to apply, said her grades were solid and her life experience would make her application stand out. You've got something a lot of students don't have, the professor said. Resilience, the ability to work hard, and real-world experience on a working farm. That matters? Maya started to believe that maybe her future could be more than she'd ever imagined. On the first day of school, Daniel made her a big breakfast. Nervous? He asked. Terrified, Maya admitted. New school, new people. What if they what? Judge you? Some people will. Some people judge everyone. But you know what? Their opinions don't define your worth. You define your worth, Maya smiled. You sound like Dr. Chen. She's a smart woman. Now eat up. You need fuel for your brain. The school day was easier than Maya expected. Nobody knew her history. Nobody knew Catherine's version of who she was. She was just the new girl who lived on a farm. A few people were curious and friendly. Some ignored her. Nobody was cruel. That night, Maya texted her dad a photo of herself with Cooper the horse. She was smiling, a real smile, sitting on Cooper's back with the farm stretched out behind her. Her dad texted back, "You look happy." "I'm glad, sweetheart. Really glad." 3 months later, her dad came to visit. Alone. He and Catherine were in counseling, he explained, but things were rocky. They might not make it. But that wasn't Maya's problem to fix. He spent the weekend at the farm, helping with chores, meeting the animals, talking with Daniel. Maya watched them interact and realized Daniel had become more of a father to her in a few months than her real dad had been in years. But her actual father was trying now. Asking questions. Really listening. Admitting his mistakes. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. On his last day there, he pulled Maya aside. "I'm proud of you. For standing up for yourself. For finding people who treat you right. I should have been that person for you, and I wasn't. I'm going to do better." "I hope so, Dad," Maya said. "I really do." After he left, Maya sat on the porch with Daniel watching the sunset paint the fields gold and orange. "You doing okay?" he asked. "Yeah," Maya said, and she meant it. "I think I actually am." She'd come here expecting punishment and misery. Instead, she'd found safety, healing, and the courage to believe she deserved better. She'd found someone who saw her worth when she couldn't see it herself. She'd found home. And as the sun set over the farm that had saved her life, Maya knew that whatever came next, she could handle it. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. She was enough. She'd always been enough. And anyone who couldn't see that didn't deserve space in her life. The farm had taught her to grow. Not just vegetables and confidence, but a future she actually wanted to live in. And that was worth more than any amount of money Daniel had in the bank.